Kevin Hines is a public speaker, a doting husband, and a great son. He's also living with bipolar 1 disorder and chronic suicidality. His book, Cracked Not Broken, chronicles what life looked like before his diagnosis, before proper mental health treatment, and how he attempted suicide by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. His story is unlike any you've heard. This is the Kevin Hines series. Kevin, do you know why today is so significant?
I didn't even think about it right now. Today's the anniversary of the day I attempted to take my life off the Golden Gate Bridge. I didn't even think about it until you said it.
Why do you think you didn't think about it till now?
You know, Kyle, for the most part, I have closure, you know? I mean, my dad took me back to the bridge a year later to the date of my anniversary. And we stood at the very light rail that I attempted. I knew exactly which light rail it was, and I don't say it aloud because I don't want people to get ideas, but we stood there and he had me, on the drive there, he pulls over right in front of the Police Officers Union building, right near Clement and Park Presidio in San Francisco, if you know that area. And all these police were in their full dress blues in the windows. All their cars were lined up in the parking lot and their bikes. And he goes, Kevin, pick a flower. And I go, Dad, I'm not picking a flower from the Police Officers Union building in San Francisco, you get arrested. He goes, pick a flower, Kevin. Jump out, grab a purple tulip with yellow inside. We go to the bridge. We get to the parking lot. I don't want to get out of the car. I don't want to get out of the car. Dad, I can't do this. I can't do this. Kevin, we need this. You have to do this. We need closure. I said, Dad, you need closure. I need to go home and lay down. He said, no, Kevin, we're doing this. So we walk out to the bridge and he says, show me where. And I showed him the exact light rail like it happened the day before. We hold the flower over the rail. My father grabs my left hand with his right. We say in Our Father. And he says, drop the flower. And I dropped the flower and it wafted down and it hit the water and made the tiniest ripple effects. Then 2 feet to the right, popped up a sea lion. And it was arguably the most beautiful moment I've ever had with my dad besides him being the best man at my wedding.
And the sea lion has a lot of significance that we will get into in this series. For people who don't know you, you have become one of the world leaders of suicide awareness, of mental health advocacy. Why have you dedicated your life to this cause?
Kyle, I often say in my speeches I've been in pain since the day I was born. Born in squalor in the Tenderloin of San Francisco, in the worst neighborhood then, the worst neighborhood today, in what they called a crack motel. It was a rough life for me in my beginning, and when you have that traumatic infancy, it never leaves you, and it follows you your whole life. And it had a great deal to do with my breakdown at 17 and my development of bipolar disorder, which both my biological parents had before me. And to answer your question, I dedicate my life, sometimes 320 days a year, to this cause because I want to help people who are in that devastating brain pain find the will to stay. At least, Kyle, I want to try my hardest to do that, to help people recognize their value, that they are worthy, and that suicide is never the solution to their problem. It is the problem.
Very well said. Well, I'm very excited to get into this series. I've finished reading your book, as most everybody here has, Cracked Not Broken. Really excellent information in there, but also such a fascinating read. It was a read that kept me going. I didn't feel like I was reading a textbook or anything. I felt like I was reading a man's story. So it's an honor to meet you and have you here. I think that people are going to watch this and become instant Kevin Hines fans if they're not already. And perhaps even more important, they will walk away with tools and an education that they didn't have before. So when I met you today, when you walked in, I go, oh yeah, there's my friend Kevin. Like, I didn't think like, oh, there's the guy I'm about to interview. There's the author. I go, oh yeah, my friend Kevin's here. Like, that's what I felt.
Done.
Do you feel like people come up to you like that?
Oh man, I'm old pals with everybody.
Yeah, right. You have so many friends you didn't know about. And why do you think that is?
You know, they connect to this story because there are people always tell me, Kevin, your story is so multifaceted. There's so many places where different people can connect to one story.
Yes.
Which has multiple levels, right? So if you go look at like the traumatic infancy, the foster care system that I was in, the adoption, the substance use, drug addicted parents who lost me, and the birth brother who died of disease. All of these points relate to different kind of people.
Yeah.
So they feel this relatability. Then you have this faction of people that all do and take mental health first aid around the country and around the world, and they see the video that we did as a flagship effort for that cause, and they play it hundreds, thousands of times a year, and they have to sit there and watch it. So when they see me in person, they get so excited, and we are old pals. They're like, I know you, and you're like, okay, let's do this. You know?
Yeah.
Let's be friends.
I had the same reaction. I was talking to a friend who also read your book, and I asked her, I said, did you feel, because when I read your story, I felt like I got it. And I wasn't sure if I was supposed to get it because it's such a unique story, but I felt like I got it. And I asked her if she felt that way, and she said, I got this specific part of it. And I said, that's what I'm keen in with. I got a specific part of your story, which made me believe that I got, the whole thing, but it is relatable on so many levels.
Yeah, I think that's why so many different kinds of people connect to it.
Yeah.
Every ethnic makeup, every socioeconomic background, every gender specific kind of person can relate to the story.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. Why? I think it's because everybody can relate to pain.
Yes.
We've all been in pain if we're old enough.
Yes.
And if you can relate to pain, that's what the book's about. It's about surviving the pain at all costs.
Yeah.
And when you resonate that and you connect it to the brain pain, a lot of people, millions of people experience in different ways. Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, eating disorders, anxiety, stress, depression. The litany of list, it goes on and on. I've had people of all walks of life come and tell me that this book has touched them in a way that most do not. And I've had people who have Tourette syndrome come up and say, this has inspired them to write their own book. And then they go do it. So, it's a point of connectivity that because of the pain can reach anybody who's ever been through something.
Let's go so back to the beginning. Okay. I want to, we're talking about 3-month-old Kevin Hines. What was life like for him?
It was humble beginnings. We talked about it earlier, but born on 6th Street in Tenderloin, in what would be distinguished as a crack motel, concrete slab floors, box spring for a mattress, and my birth parents were very sick. May they rest in peace. Marcia Silvera and Martino Ferrales. He was half Mexican, half Italian. I always say in my speeches that's the best parts of me. And Marcia was from James Bond Island, Jamaica. All our family lives out there now and has lived there their whole lives. And there's about 300 of us. And my birth mom and dad met in the 1980s roughly, and they met in post, hippie San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And they were true hippies to the core. And they lived that free love era and free everything else in the 1970s. And they met in the 80s in San Francisco, and they had two baby boys, me and my brother. My name wasn't always Kevin Hines. That's my adopted name. My biological name is Giovanni Gabriel Prasad Ferrales. And somehow my brother's name was just Jordash, which I don't understand why I get 4 and he gets 1. But they couldn't take care of us, Kyle. They had no way to. They had to pay that motel bill on the hour by the hour, and they really did anything they had to do, however illegal, to pay by that hour. And they would do score and sell drugs on a daily, and they would leave me and my brother as infants on a seedy motel bed over a concrete slab floor, lying next to dangerous drug paraphernalia, sharp metal objects we had touched would have killed us. We're lucky those two things didn't end our lives. And one day, this seedy motel clerk, as I can best describe him from the court document information we have. This seedy motel clerk made what I've always called his most unseedy decision. He heard me and my brother screaming and crying from neglect too many times, and he called the police. This is a guy who doesn't ever want to call the police because he's doing shady things in his motel. But he called the police, and it was the best day of our lives because they came in, and the document said that it smelled sour and putrid. You know, we were lying in our own filth. We had distended bellies filled with liquid, bruises from the tops of our sternum to the bottoms of our abdomens from being malnourished. My mom and dad fed us what they could steal. Kool-Aid, Coca-Cola, and sour milk was my diet for the first 9 months of my life. And my brother. And, you know, we bounce around from home to home after we're taken in protective custody, put in the foster care system, a system for all the good it does a lot of damage. It allows kids to age out to 18 onto the streets with not a penny in their pockets, allows other kids to be abused by this or that foster parent, allows other kids to be neglected by foster parents who have too many kids in the home just to make that coin to put money in their pockets, but they're not taking care of those kids. And me and my brother were supposed to be together for the rest of our lives. And you know that's not what happened. It rarely ever falls that way in foster care, certainly in San Francisco at the time. And we both got sick one day with a vicious strain of bronchitis, and Jordash died. And you know, I've had adults, multiple people, say to me after I tell this story, well, something to the effect of, well, Kevin, why does that matter? You were an infant. How could that affect you? The closest person to me that I smelt, saw, heard, touched, and felt every day disappeared in one day in a matter of hours. With me every day, and then he was gone. And I was already taken away from my birth parents. So I immediately at that point in my life developed what the doctors called a severe detachment disorder from reality at roughly 9 months of age. That was my beginning. Mm-hmm. And I also developed serious abandonment issues that I can tell you follow me until right now. Every time somebody I love dies, I feel like they're leaving me on purpose. And I can't shake it no matter how much therapy I do.
You feel that today?
Today. Every single time somebody I love unconditionally dies, I break.
And you feel like they did it on purpose?
I feel like they're just... I talk about it a lot. I tell my wife all these things because she's got my back. I tell my therapist all these things because he does too. I'm honest about my pain. And I miss my mom and dad and my brother like I knew him my entire life. Mm. It's a massive void in my chest. And growing up, all I ever wanted to do was to find them. And if I could just get the opportunity to hug them once, I mean, I knew my brother died, but if I could just get the opportunity to hug my mom and dad once and tell them I loved them, that was my goal. Like kids have goals, right? You have goals to be on the soccer team or the football team or be in the school play. I did all that. But my life goal was to meet mom and dad, tell them I love them once. And if they rejected me, like many parents do after adoption, to their kids who search out and find them, I would be fine with that. I just needed that one hug, and I needed them to hear me say that I love them unconditionally without fail. And I never got to have that because I found out at 12 that my birth father, Martino, he had accosted an undercover police officer during the court hearing between Patrick and Deborah Hines and Martino and Marcia for custody of me, which lasted 2 years. And he was killed. He was searching for drugs, and he messed with the wrong dude who was a cop. And he put him down. I wish I never learned that.
You wish you never?
I wish I'd never learned that. Wish I never knew my dad died. Because I'd been searching for him in my mind for my entire life. And then when I actually wanted to go search for him, it was too late. And then the similar thing happened with my mom at 27 years of age. I went to look for Marcia. And I found a friend of mine from the Mental Health Board of San Francisco, Helena Brooke, a wonderful person, who actually did the digging, because the Department of Social Services had sent me home with a stack of paper literally this big to fill out. And I was like, I'm not doing this. This is nonsense. So I called my friend Helena. I said, Helena, is there anything you can do if I give you these names, do you think you can find them? She goes, I'll see what I can do. I have a lot of connections in the foster care system. Lo and behold, 2 weeks later, she calls me. And she says, Kevin, I have good news and I have bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I said, hit me with the bad news. She goes, Kevin, your birth mom is dead. I said, how? She said, apparently she was sober for years and one day went back on drugs and walked in front of a tow truck. She didn't die, lost her leg due to complications to that injury, and then lost her life a year later to the date of the amputation due to complications to the amputation. I had missed my mom by 2 years, and she lived in the same city as me my entire life. She lived in and out of squalor. She lived in and out of halfway homes. She was a beautiful artist, beautiful painter. I've sketched my entire life, never known where my sketching ability came from. And then Helena says to me, but there's a silver lining. You have a sister I didn't know I had, named Shika. And so I'm devastated over here. But my brain's like, oh my God, I have someone to latch onto, and she lives in this city and I can meet her. And so she gives me the phone number of my parents, my grandparents. And I find out that my grandfather's name is Blenkhorn Silvera and my grandmother's name is Hope. And it was so fitting, and I called the number. And it was one of those antiquated old machines with the little tape inside. Mm-hmm. Remember those? That wasn't too long ago. And I left a message, and the message went like this. Hi, Shika. My name is Kevin Hines. My name used to be Giovanni Gabriel Prasad Farales. I think I'm your brother. Call me. Click.
Normal voice
message. Yeah, normal voice message. Yeah. She didn't call for 2 years.
Yeah. I'm probably like, okay, whatever.
No, that guy sounds wild. Yeah. So she calls me 2 years later. I'm in my kitchen. I have the same number. My dad's upstairs. And she goes, hi, is this Kevin? I said, yes. She said, your name used to be Giovanni. And I knew it.
You knew that.
I knew it. And I was like, and I waited for it. And she goes, this is Shika. And I go, like Shika, my sister? And she goes, how many Shikas do you know?
Yeah.
I said, only you. I said, we got to meet right now. She goes, hold on. I can't talk to you. I don't know you. I said, Shika, I've been looking for you my whole life. Just meet me once. If you don't like me, we never have to see each other again. She said, okay. Met her at Starbucks on 14th and Ulloa. I stood there pacing back and forth in front of Starbucks looking like a goofball. And around the corner walks this beautiful woman in a red sundress and a scarf. The uncanny resemblance of mom. Mm. And remember, all I ever wanted to do was hug my mom and tell her I love her. Mm-hmm. And that's when Shika opened her arms, enveloped me in hers, leaned in right here and said, I love you. And it was like all of that pain washed away. And it was also one of the most powerful moments of my entire life.
And how often do you guys talk now?
I talk to her all the time. We're thick as thieves. And I found out I had a brother I didn't know I had.
Don't bring that up, yeah.
You know? And that was amazing. He's too damn handsome, though. It's not fair.
Yeah. Well, and your arms are so skinny, and so, like, I'm sure you're uncomfortable about that. I'm just kidding. You're huge arms. We're making fun of you. When you said that was one of, if not one of the best moments of your life.
Absolutely.
I would imagine another moment had to be when you became a Hines, I guess, with your mother and father, your adopted parents.
Yeah. March 17th, 1986. Adoption went through.
Yeah.
It was a 2-year hearing, a 4-year process to adopt. And they adopted me right alongside Elizabeth, my sister, from a different family. And we would later adopt Joseph from a different family.
Yeah.
Melting pot of a family, didn't look alike. Me, I'm mixed. My brother's black. My sister's white. And that was a special day. We have a picture somewhere of Libby and I, you know, in our overalls at the courtroom floor, you know, and it was just a moment to be had. Grandparents there, you know.
Yeah.
They passed since, but that was a magical day. You know, Pat and Debbie Hines, they are our mom and dad. Mm-hmm. It's not just like they adopt us, they're mom and dad. And although they didn't last in their marriage, for their personal reasons, they had 25 years of a beautiful marriage, and they raised 3 really intelligent, hope-filled kids who all had a lot of pain because of our birth parents, because of our brains, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Our brains were malfunctioning at the very core from the very beginning of our lives. And when we got older and we became adolescents, it all came back to hit us in the face. We all developed mental illness, the very similar ones that all of our birth parents had.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the repetition of heritage. And, you know, we're so lucky that Pat and Debbie, mom and dad, brought us into their lives and gave us a future. Because had they not come into our lives, who knows where we'd be or what we'd be or if we'd even be alive. You know, so many horror stories in foster care.
Yeah.
For all three of us to have these right parents give us their unconditional love and the unconditional love of the extended family, like we never felt adopted growing up.
Yeah.
We were never, you know, they told us from the very beginning, they didn't hide it from us, but they made it clear every single day that we were their own and they were ours. And that was really what made it special, was that there was no pretense and there was no pretending like we were their kids. And then, like, you know, when we're 14, they tell us, you know,
Right.
Which I just met a young girl who had that life happen to her, and she's destroyed. She's destroyed because she thought she was the biological child for so long. And then she finds out she's not, and her whole identity crumbled.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that they always told us was very special and very positive. And they always made us feel like we were unique, like we could do anything, and like we could take on the world and live a beautiful life. And it was because of how hard they worked.
God, they really did, didn't
They did, yeah. I mean, like, my dad always taught me, Kevin, hard work, because nothing good ever came without it.
Yeah.
And for a long time during my mental struggles, I forgot that. I was at you know, we can get into that, but.
Well, your parents, when they're describing the book, seem like such opposites to me. And is this?
They are.
Yeah, your dad. I mean, this stoic, masculine guy. I've never met him, but that's just how he comes up. And then your mother, who is just this caring, just like my child, my baby boy. Share the story of your mom meeting you, your adoptive mom meeting you for the first time. Like that's just...
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
She wrote in her journal her entire experience. And as I recall, it was at the Peter and Deborah Muller's house, and Peter was in the Army. Debbie was a housewife. They were a transitional home for kids. Yeah. They were a home where many kids would come in at the same time, boys and girls of all ages, and then they would be picked up and taken home to be adopted by other foster parents. And they were a transitional home because Peter was in the Army, so he had to move a lot. So when they would move, they would have the parents come to pick their kids. And one day, Debbie Hines walks in their door, but she's not looking for a little boy. She's looking for a little girl to be the sister of Elizabeth Catherine, the girl she and Patrick Kevin had already taken in. Except she sees on the carpeted floor before her, redheaded, wavy-haired Giovanni at the time. and she said in that moment, and in the journal, she said that was the moment she fell in love. And I was this tiny little pasty-faced, redheaded kid with like a Beatles haircut, and she just goes, I'm taking him. And she calls Patrick. He says, let's do it. And they take me in at 9 months of age. And for the first 30 days of being in the Hines home, I was violently ill. All day, every day, sick as a dog from that detachment disorder.
Right.
And no doctor could tell Pat and Debbie what was wrong with their new-to-be son until a specialist came forward and said, Patrick and Deborah, you know, besides the malnourishment, there's nothing physically wrong with this child. It's all emotional, 9 months of age. And I remember that they told me I was almost like a skittish, fearful child. You know, everything scared me. Everything shocked me. I would jump out of my skin when I heard a boo or something, you know. And I also had a lot of energy that was untamed. So there was this kind of juxtaposition of like fear and this wild side as a kid. And they really, you know, Debbie and I would bond like no other. We would become best friends from the moment I entered her home. And 30 days would go by of no sleep for two of us because I was so sick, sample after sample to the doctors, until he said, it's all emotional. And on the 30th day of being in the Hines home, Debbie comes to my crib and she looks down at me And she says something to the effect of, Gio, you're safe. We're not going anywhere. But if you don't knock this off, we're going to give you back.
That's right. I love, like,
it's a contradiction.
I get that, but
it's hilarious.
It was, when I read that, I go,
real.
That's parenting.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to love you enough to show you the rules here. Okay? Because this is not, I'm not sleeping for another month.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I was just like, good. I just love that.
And she says that was the first night we both slept soundly.
Oh, yeah.
As if my infant mind had actually like really understood her. And the next day she came to the crib and she looked down and she says, I looked up at her and I smiled. And I always say in my speeches that clearly I was just passing gas, but but you know, we can pretend.
Hey, whatever puts a smile on your face at that point.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about school for you.
Yeah.
You look like a tough guy. Like if I saw you in the grocery store, I'd probably be like, hey, you can have the last cantaloupe. Like, I'll take strawberries instead. But you were bullied in school.
Oh, it was vicious, man.
Yeah, talk about that.
People don't even believe me, but things these kids did to me. It was hard. I mean, I was the only mixed kid for a long time that wasn't either, you know, we had probably 88, 90% Irish and Italian kids. Like these are 100% kids, you know, at least they thought they were, and they acted like they were. And you had maybe one or two Asians in the entire school at the time I went there. No African Americans, no Mexican kids. And here I am, this kid who doesn't have an identity. Every time someone asks me what my ethnic background is, which is every day someone asks me, I couldn't tell them because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm adopted, I have no idea.
Right.
And then when it turned around, I would say, you know, I wish I knew what I was. They'd say, why do you care? And I would say, well, hold on, you've known your entire life, and it's somehow shaped and defined you and who you are. I've never known, and I don't know, so it's not that simple. But I knew I wasn't just white. I knew I was more than that. And they would literally, the 8th graders, which is why it was so sickening, because I was only 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade when this was going on. The 8th graders would pull my ears from behind me and yell, whistle, little N-word, whistle. I'm a child. I didn't know what it meant. Mm-hmm. I go home, and they did it in such a way that they would pull my ears gently, right? And they would say it, and then they would smile. So as a kid, I thought it was a term of endearment. So I go home one day and I go, Dad, guess what they called me at school today? And he goes, what, Kevin? And I said, Little Red, and I said it. And he goes, Jesus H. Christ, Kevin. And his face turned red. And he goes, you can't say that. Yeah. I immediately started crying. He goes, no, oh, Kevin, listen, that's a bad word. I said, no, Dad, they like me. They really like me. He goes, no, Kevin, they don't. I'm going to your school tomorrow. Go to your room. And it was like, what just happened?
Yeah, what? Right.
And apparently my dad went and read the riot act to these teachers at a Catholic school, right? And, you know, learning as I grew older what that word meant, oh, it was so hard. Yeah. That was just one incident. You know, we're talking about every single day, certain kids of certain backgrounds, white kids, putting their arms behind me and having one of them punch me in the gut right here repeatedly so that nobody would see the bruises on my face. Mm. And then you're talking about kids who would get into a verbal argument with me just to physically push me back because I was never defensive. I never fought back. I never hit anybody. I didn't like violence. My mom taught me the way through a discussion and an argument and a fight was through words. She always taught me that. I've never been in a fight in my life. And so they'd back me up, and then someone would get behind me, crouch on their knees, and they'd push me over them. And I'd fall back and hit my head, and they'd laugh. And this kind of thing went on every day. And it followed me into high school, by the way. And I'm lucky there was no cyberbullying back then because I would have broke. I wouldn't have been able to handle it. And now cyberbullying is 63% more dangerous than physical bullying.
Right.
But these kids were vicious. And their recollection of this is probably different from mine, but I will never forget the way Mike Ramirez, Tony Ribera, and Jim Moylan treated me. And I'm glad to say their names
Mm-hmm.
because they hurt me. They hurt me more than anybody's ever hurt me in my life, even my birth parents.
Wow.
And their torment of me, it follows me right now. And I'm not complaining, I don't want any pity. These are the facts. They tormented me.
Right.
It wasn't just hazing or bullying. It was devastating what they did to me. They do things in front of girls that I liked just to make my whole month miserable. And it was vicious. But I realized today that all of those kids were in pain. All of those kids needed help. Mike Ramirez was getting beat at home, so he took it out on me. I don't blame them. I hold no anger toward them or ill will. I wish them well, and I hope that someday they actually see this and know that their words and actions can do one of two things: damage and destroy, or help and heal.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what they did to me, absolutely, and it's not a blame game here, but part of what they did to me led to the events at the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow.
And that's a fact. And I want them to know that they've moved forward. They've grown up. They're different men now. They're different people. They're good people. I know their story. I know who and what they love. I know where they are in life. Like, they're doing good things. So keep it up. But just know you had an impact on a young man that changed his destiny. And for the rest of your life, you guys, be kind and compassionate to every person you come into contact with, because you never know what they're going through.
Yes, and I know a lot of our viewers are parents.
Yeah.
And maybe this is one of the episodes that you guys should watch together at home, because there's a lot of takeaways there. At the same time you were being bullied, you were undiagnosed with bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety. I'm going to read something from your book. This is on page 24 in chapter 1. It's a little long, but it says, "There was also another reason for my bad listening skills, a reason that wouldn't come to the attention of teachers or even family until I was 17 years old. My brain was moving faster than a healthy human brain should. I was, unknowingly at the time, dealing with serious, rapid, and tangential thank you, thought patterns. I heard every word said by my teachers, family, classmates, and friends. Every word. Unlike a normal child, though, I overanalyzed every piece of information as it worked its way through my brain. Every word. Not only every word, I heard every consonant and vowel, every part of speech, verbs, nouns, and adjectives uttered in conversation, separated by the intonation, volume, inflection of each voice. Every voice. I grew confused and bewildered by the sounds and gestures around me. To others, I appeared to be zoning out or not paying attention, when really I was paying attention to every detail in the world around me. It was painful. Sometimes I could not answer teachers because I was so tormented by trying to parse the meaning of all those outside voices. Some call it attention deficit disorder. I call it madness." And this is what you're going through as a kid. And nobody knew.
Couldn't vocalize it.
Yeah.
It was constant. You know, how do you explain that to your parents when you have a fourth grader vocabulary? You can't. And so when we look at our children who are misbehaving, acting out, acting unaware and aloof, sometimes it's just not that simple. Sometimes these kids who've been in pain since the day they were born, who've been abused and neglected, are acting out the way they are because of what they've seen, heard, or what's been done to them. Every behavior is precipitated by an event. For every action, there is a reaction. For every cause, there is an effect. And one thing that really breaks my heart about this country and every country I go into, where I go into high schools and colleges and grade schools all around the world, are the common themes I see in kids, children, whether they're in fourth grade, because I go talk to fourth graders, or they're 19-year-olds in college. This is what happens. I see clearly anorexic and bulimic kids who are not eating because of their pain. I see the jocks who are hopped up on all kinds of whey proteins that are filled with chemicals that are damaging their brains. I see the overweight kids who are eating whatever they can to fill their voids, and they're very sick, and they're very unwell, and they're unbalanced mentally because they're feeding their brains inflammatory foods that are damaging their gut and their brain. Their gut to brain health is very poor. That's the common theme I see amongst kids, those three separate things. In between those three separate things are kids of all three kinds being abused and neglected at home in ways that should never be happening in this country or any other country by parents who are supposed to love them. The stories I've heard from the abuse in America of our children is deplorable, disgusting, and vile. I had a little bit of neglect, I had a little bit of neglect in my life. I had a lot of trauma. And these kids today, they come down off bleachers after a speech and they pour their hearts out, because when you tell your story, they tell you theirs.
Yeah.
And when they tell me their story, it's everything I can do not to stand there and cry like a baby because of what they're going through. And the only recourse I can give them is to say to them that someday you will be past the point in your life when you have to rely on these adults in your life, if we'll call them that, who are hurting you. And you'll be able to build your own narrative and you'll be able to change your life. But you got to be here to get there in the first place. And I try to express to them that they do deserve to be here no matter what is being said to them at home. And I think what parents who are not superheroes and who are not special people, they're just human beings with kids. What they need to understand, whether they're abusive or neglectful or not, is that every one of us from childhood has a negative inner critical voice that either develops or it doesn't. It doesn't develop when you have parents that treat you well, that don't yell at you, that don't hurt you emotionally. It does occur when you have parents that yell at you, hurt you emotionally, and don't treat you well or abuse you. And that inner critical voice leads to these kids looking in the mirror like I did and self-loathing so deeply that they believe they have to die by their hands. If we could teach these kids not to stop bullying, that's not going to solve the problem. You want to teach kids to stop bullying, you're never going to teach 100% of kids to not hurt other kids. There are kids in this world that don't have the empathy gene. They don't have it in them to be empathetic to other people's pain. So they give pain. But if you can teach the other kids who are given that pain how to be resilient in the face of it, they can always survive. And that's what I try to impart on them, is that you have to build your strength from the ground up when you're in that pain. You have to build brick by brick that house up over yourself so that when they come at you and they hit you with that hurt, you deflect it, you push it off, you don't fight back, but you know you're safe, you're beautiful, you're loved, and you're important, and you're valued, and you matter.
Yes.
And so if we can teach our kids resilience in a country that is filled with a lack of it, we can save their lives.
That's the best message.
If you like psychology and learning about mental health and want to learn more while meeting other people who are interested, explore your membership options using the link below this video or visit MedCircle.com.
Now, you wanted to be, and maybe you still do, I don't know, an actor. And you were, according to your mother in the book, were a pretty good actor, so.
Well, according to my mother and my grandmother,
Yeah.
may she rest in peace, I was a really good actor. I did high school theater from freshman year to junior year, and then I got sick in junior year. And in junior year, that's when I had my, that's when my brain broke, you know. I was 17, and I was standing on a stage playing a character called Gatch. And if you're familiar with Gatch, he's in the show How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And Gatch is this philandering businessman. He, cheats on his wife with all the secretaries in the office, and he's an awful, awful man. He's a jerk, and he's a horrible example for young men. And I remember I was wearing in the show one of my dad's old suits and ties, because my dad was a 45-year economist in San Francisco, and one of the most prominent bankers of his time in the city. And he always wore two things, Brooks Brothers suits and ties. And I forget the other company, but it was like St. James's clothes. So yeah, two places he went to. And I was wearing one of his Brooks Brothers double-breasted suits that they'd kind of hemmed to fit me. He's 6'1", and I'm not. I'm a tall 5'7", though.
Yeah.
5'7" and a quarter. And I'm on that stage, and I had been really acting unwell and erratic, and I was off, and everyone knew it. And
What does that look like?
well, it means that I was talking rapidly all the time. I couldn't stop the flow of thought through my mind, and I couldn't organize it, so I just spit it out to anyone, everyone. And in high school, I started to become aggressive, and I would, if I thought people were, I started to become aggressive and paranoid. And this is something that was under the surface, so nobody really knew about it yet. People knew that I was off and that I was acting erratic and that I was high energy all the time. I couldn't stop talking, couldn't stop moving, couldn't stop shaking. And my parents were certainly worried about me. My friends were wondering about me. And then at 17 on that stage playing Gatch, opening night comes. And here there's two things that came into play that really made this so terrifying. Columbine had just happened. And Mr. John Fennell, who was our theater director, he was basically a failed actor turned thespian director. But he was one of the best directors in the city at the high school level. They said John Fennell created professional shows from high school kids. They said that NYU scouts would come to those shows to see who they were going to take to their school to give them scholarships. And that actually happened. And John Fennell, he was like this goofy haircutted character with this big kind of overzealous mustache and this dark, chalky smoker's gray hair. But he was a great human being, so energetic and so much fun, also so tough on everyone. If you did anything other than what John said for you to do on stage, he would take his left thumb, he would pop it out of the right corner of his mouth, make a loud popping sound, and he would yell. He would always call me by my last name. He would say, "Hines, that's the sound of your head coming out of your..." Anyway, you know.
Yeah.
And
Wait, how does that finish?
Oh, you know how it finishes. Come on. And he would say it real loud, and it would echo through the whole theater, and they had just refurbished it, so it was a big place, and 1,200-person theater. And he said that a lot to me because I would do things like walk backwards in blocking lines. It drove him bananas.
Yeah, but explain that, because that was really interesting in the book.
So John tells you got to go from stage left, which is my right, to stage right, which is my left. So I would go like this backwards. He'd be like, "What are you doing?" Or, he'd give you a stage direction or a line direction, and you'd miss it.
Yeah.
And he would be like, "Hines!"
Yeah.
And he'd do the popping thing. And he did it to everyone who ever did anything other than what he said. But John Fennell, he had his own pain. Primary alcoholism. He would sit in the back of every theater show he ever directed and drink himself into oblivion. And the parents would bring him his favorite bottles every show. Multiple parents, so he had multiple bottles. And he went through them all. We enabled John. And nobody talks about that. And he would be the first person of 7 people that I love that I would lose to suicide in my 36 years. He was my hero. He was definitely a mentor, and he was my friend. And I looked at him like a second father figure. John would never recover from his disease. And that was 17. And I think at 18, right before we were about to graduate, I'm falling apart mentally. I'm living with my dad now. My mom kicked me out. My mom kicked me out on my 18th birthday. She was this consummate optimist, but then she couldn't handle it anymore. I was punching holes in drywalls, and she feared for her safety, and I don't blame her. And she kicks me out, and I go with my dad, and I remember I was home with my dad And he kind of bursts into my room and he goes, Kevin, come here. Your mother's on the phone. And my mother never called my dad. They hated each other. They couldn't even be civil at all. And he goes, your mother's on the phone. It's important. And I pick up the phone and he says, Kevin, sit down. I sit down on the edge of his bed and she says, Kevin, I have some bad news. I said, what is it, Mom? Mr. Fennell is dead. He killed himself. And it was the first time in my life that my heart broke. Because I was helpless. And he was already gone. And the last memory I have of John Fennell was when I was in his classroom. Just a few weeks before. And I was reading the book, The Rock Says, that my dad had gotten signed for me because I love The Rock. And I'm reading the section in the book about depression that he overcame. And I'm thinking, I can do this. I can get past this nonsense that I'm going through. And I was reading it in his class and he said, Kevin, Hines, put that away. You're in class. It's theater class, my favorite class. But I really wanted to read the book. So I kept reading. I was trying to hide it like I'm not reading, I'm paying attention to the class. And he grabbed the book and he threw it across the theater. I dove for it. I tried to catch it, but it hit the metal chair and it tore this signed book and I lost it. I picked up a projector and I threw it and broke it. I told him to go F himself. I told him I was going to kill him. I was already gone mentally and I let him have it. I think this must have been after the play because I had already unraveled once before. And they called my family and said I was a danger to the school and, you know. And that was the last engaging activity I had with John Fennell before he killed himself. It was a fight. So for the longest time, I believed it was my fault. I believe he left because of me. I was wrong. I learned that today. Been through a lot of therapy about it. But I missed that guy like I lost him yesterday. And I'm not the only one that lost him. Thousands of kids in the Bay Area who he taught lost him. His wife and 2 daughters lost him. His dog lost him. Mm-hmm. You know? And that's why the film's dedicated to him.
From my understanding, he did not often give compliments, but he did give.
No, he did not. He would talk about how little he gave compliments.
Yeah.
I don't give compliments unless they're due, you know, things like that.
And he gave you one that was.
He gave me a great one. I auditioned for A Few Good Men, alongside 2 seniors for the role of. 2 seniors auditioned for the role of Kaffee, Tom Cruise's role in A Few Good Men, and we all thought they were shoo-ins because they were his favorites and they were really good and they had trained in some way and they were really working hard toward it. But when they came to A Few Good Men auditions, thank you, they were so cocky and brash and negative and making fun of people and messing around during this play audition. The entire audition, they were just horsing around and playing grab ass. And John Fennell, one thing he always said was, if you are not completely focused on the task at hand, you're not going to be in my plays. And they knew that. They'd worked with them for years. They were seniors. But they fooled around anyway the whole time, and they messed around with all the cute girls who were there, and he noticed. And he had a second chair who was in the school and who was a senior, who was a really good guy named Evan Tamayo. Evan Tamayo was this big guy with a heart of gold who gave you the best hugs, and he was the kindest soul. But he was a huge, massive guy, but he was so sensitive, like he would never harm a fly. And Evan Tamayo was John Fennell's right hand as a student, right? Like his student intern. Mm-hmm. And Evan, I'm on stage, and John goes, "Okay, Kevin, what role do you want in the play?" And I said, Mr. Fennell, I'll play a bearskin rug, a light pole, or a light fixture, or a stop sign, or anything you give me on crew, on stage, in the lighting, the sound, or anything else. I just want to be a part of the team. And he goes, Kevin, what role do you want to play? I was like,
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm serious, man. I'll do anything. He goes, all right, let's just get on with the audition. Yeah. So I do the audition, and I see Evan lean over and say something to John Fennell. Who knows what he said? They're in the middle aisle of the theater. But something shifted in his eyes. And then the casting calls go up, it puts the note on the wall, and I see those two leads freak out, start screaming and cussing that they didn't get the lead. And they walk by me and they both bump me in the shoulder and they go, good luck. And so I get the role and I play Caffey, and the whole school, said I should do this for a living. And I had wanted to be in film, and I wanted to act since I was 6 years old. To answer your question finally, I wanted to act since I was 6 years old, and I would always impersonate my favorite film stars, and I got really good at doing, like Jim Carrey from Ace Ventura. Yeah. And I would walk around Clear Lake, which is where our summer place was, and I would just be Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura, and I would be like, I am your personal protector. And, I would just do it all day long, and I would impersonate all these actors, and I would do all these storylines. And like growing up as a kid, every day I would look in the mirror and I would pretend that I was on with David Letterman. Right. And I would just do that every day. I would do a whole 30-minute set with David Letterman in the mirror. Just me. Yeah. It's just me by myself, talking to David, and I would do his jokes and my jokes. And I always imagined, doing that work because I loved acting and I love the theater and I love film. And, I'm lucky I get to make documentaries now because this kind of, it changed, it morphed, but it kind of became true anyway.
I wasn't going to ask you this question, but now I'm going to ask it to you because it triggered it when you were talking. You say in chapter 9 on page 104, it happened much like my second psychotic breakdown, the one in high school. My dad would later blame it on my dreams of acting and how they clouded my sense of reality. Maybe there is some truth in that. Do you think that there is truth in that?
I used to think that maybe my dad's right, that playing a character depletes yourself. Takes away a bit of yourself. So you look at Daniel Day-Lewis, Al Pacino, even Robert De Niro, and some of the greatest method actors of our time. I've watched Al Pacino, and I'm going to get to your point in a minute, but I've watched Al Pacino on stage at I think it was the Critics' Choice Awards, where he's getting an honorary award. And he gets up there and he goes, I don't know, man. I don't know who I am anymore. If I'm not a character that I'm playing, who the hell's Al Pacino? And he goes into this 5-minute rant about how he is completely lost and nobody knows or cares to ask. And he's like, I don't know who I am. Do you know who I am? I don't know who I am unless I'm playing a character. And he goes into it. And when I saw that, I was like, that's what my dad meant. And here's what happened. When I had my first rehearsal for the show Rehearsal for Murder, where I played one of the leads in my freshman year, my dad didn't want me to go out for the theater auditions because he wanted me to go out for football, which was the same time. Because he played football but didn't get to continue his career that they told him he was going to be in the NFL. They said, Patrick, you hit like nobody else. He would make snot bubbles come out of people's noses when he would hit them every time. He would crush them. And he could not finish that dream of playing football, which he wanted because of his parents, because of his lack of funds, and because he had to go work to feed his sister in high school. And so, it's that, the father wants the son to follow in the same footsteps thing, but the son doesn't want to do that. And I didn't want to play football. And so I went out for the theater show. I did Rehearsal for Murder. And I'm in the car on the way to Rehearsal for Murder's first rehearsal. And my dad turns to me about 10 minutes away from Reardon High School, and he goes, Kevin, I hate actors. All they do is have time for leisurely activities. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of space. They're unnecessary. We don't need them. I don't want you to be one. I was like, but Dad, I'm going to go audition for my first show.
Yeah,
right.
How do you feel
right
about
now?
That? Yeah.
Right now, I have to go do this. You're driving me there. Yeah. And I would later learn why he felt that way. And it's sad because he was, as a banker, he would have to entertain people at events, and you would have to hire an entertainer. And they had hired Robin Williams to come and do a comedy set before this big event, this big gala. And the honoree of the evening was one of these founding ladies of whatever the bank was. And she was in her 80s or 90s. And at one point she turns to my dad and goes, Patrick, what's that nice young man on stage saying? I can't hear him. But she's being loud because she's an old lady and she can't hear. And she can't hear how loud she's being. And then Robin Williams looks off stage and heckles her. And my dad almost killed him. He couldn't stand that this very important woman was being disrespected by a man of the theater who has no compassion for an old lady who can't hear. He felt that she disrespected the woman of the night, and he was enraged. And those kinds of situations would happen to him over his course of his life, where actors and entertainers would insult him or his intelligence, and he determined that they're all useless.
Does he still feel that way?
I don't think so. I think my book helped. I talk about Daniel Day-Lewis in the book and about how, my dad used to say they're the least hardworking people in the room.
Right.
When in fact, they're some of the hardest working people in every room.
Right.
And to master that craft and to be a good method actor, you have to be inside of a character that's not yourself, which means you have to do a lot of research, which means you have to do a lot of work. And he values hard work, but he didn't value actors because he thought it was a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yet he loved film, loved going to see movies, and loved picking them apart. It was this contradiction, which was the basis of his personality. He was always angry. His back was always against a wall. He was always protecting himself from childhood. And so his initial reaction to adversarial situations is to bite first and ask questions later. Mm-hmm.
And so today on this couch, do you think your dreams of acting clouded your sense of reality?
I think today that I'm so stable mentally, I know exactly who I am, where I'm going in life, and how I'm going to get there. And I feel good in my present. I feel good as me right here, right now. So if I was to go and pursue an acting career today, it would not affect my mental health.
Yeah.
Because I would do it in a way that was safe. I wouldn't stay up at all hours doing shoots at night.
Right.
That would affect my bipolar disorder and my brain.
Right.
I would do it in a way that was balanced, safe, and I'd be well. So no, it wouldn't, not today.
Briefly, because I know we have a lot to cover today. When you got that diagnosis of bipolar disorder, what did you feel?
Flawed.
You felt flawed.
Yeah. I felt like something had been taken from me, that they were trying to label me with a disease I didn't want to have, and that I don't have. And I'm fine. I was a WCL wrestling champion, football team went to state, speech and debate team. This isn't me. And then they put me on medication, too much in fact, that toxified my brain. And then I just stopped taking the medication adequately. And then it led me down this spiral that within 2 years, I was such a shell of the person I used to be that I went to the Golden Gate Bridge and I believed I had to die, and I did what I did.
Well, in our next video, we will get into more details about that. I want to leave the people watching now with something you wrote in your book that really just stuck with me. You titled this chapter The Night Before, and it's the night before you went to the Golden Gate Bridge, and you said, "On the night of September 24th, 2000, I sat alone in my room, haunted by demons, both internal and visible only to me. I had hallucinations of death himself hovering above me, with a sickle in hand telling me that I had to come home with him. Giant metallic spiders crawled across my ceiling, down my walls to eat me alive. Above me, the skies opened up and prehistoric dinosaurs flew overhead, screeching as only they can. I made plans as a chilling and dangerously demonic voice shouted in my head." We're getting into what you actually referred to as the awakening. I thought those was an interesting term. The night before you jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, you wrote in your book that you found a website that recommended you kill yourself. This site was one of many that promoted suicide. And you read these words, quote, "There's no chance you will live. Go to the Golden Gate Bridge and jump off. You will die on impact. Good luck," with an exclamation mark, end quote. What led you to the website, and what did you feel when you read that?
I was so sick, and I typed in one word. You know what the word was.
Yeah.
And what popped up were a plethora of websites that promoted taking your life. Whoever you were, whatever you're doing in life, wherever you're going, you should die just because. These websites are intrinsically connected to deaths all over the world. And the people who run them are very, very sick people who want people to die by their hands. And I found it at the most vulnerable point in my life, where I was living with an extreme amount of lethal emotional pain. And and that's how I, quote unquote, made my choice to go to the Golden Gate. But it wasn't a choice. I was compelled to die by voices in my head telling me I had to every day, by the demon that would visit me, or the demons that would visit me every day, by death himself who would visit me and say, "Come home with me," every day. Monday through Monday, these demons visited me. I just happened on that website on the night where I was at my last hope. I was at the end of my rope, as they say.
How old were you?
I was 19. And I sat there reading those words, and it was like, this is my answer. This is what I must do.
Ooh.
And the voices in my head, not your conscience, the auditory hallucinations I'd been hearing since 4th grade but never told anybody.
You hear them like you hear me right now.
Like I hear you right now. A voice in my head, like a person I've never met, talked to, loved, known, telling me things I have to do that I don't want to. And he's still with me.
You still hear him
Oh, yeah.
in current day?
Oh, yeah.
How often?
Every month.
And what kind of things do you hear?
You're useless. They don't want you here. We all hate you, Kevin. It's inevitable, Kevin. You're going to die by your hands. I'm going to kill you. And there's nothing you can do about it. I can recite it because he's always right here. But today, when that happens, I learned to immediately reverse the negative voice. So when he says to me, "I'm going to kill you," I said, "No, you're not." Sometimes aloud in front of people. And when he says, "You're useless," I said, "No, I'm very, very useful."
Yeah.
Every single thing he says that hurts, I switch it and say something positive so that I know that he can never take me because I'll never let him.
When did you get to that point?
After reading the book Conquering Your Inner Critical Voice by Dr. Robert Firestone and Dr. Lisa Firestone out of the Glendon Association in Santa Barbara, they become great friends. Dr. Firestone is the leader in the field of the inner critical voice. His daughter is the second leader in the field. And they wrote a very academic book that I don't understand most of, but that I did get the understanding of how to retrain your brain. When you have the inner critical voice, or a voice from infant trauma, or a voice from trauma that is second to your conscience, like an outside voice that you don't know, telling you things you have to do that you don't want to, you utilize this book and these tools to reverse everything negative ever said to you. Because here's the thing, everything negative that's ever been said to you It backbrains. It stays in a literal pocket memory in your brain. And every time you're damaged or trauma is reinforced, or every time you're hurt by someone, that it lights up in your brain, and the pain lights up. The hurt from the past lights up, and you don't know why you're in pain, but there it is. And so if you reset the inner critical voice or the negative or the hearing voices with positive affirmations, with indelible truths that you tell yourself that you are beautiful, you are valued, you do matter, you're supposed to be here, they can never take you.
Good advice.
Yeah.
The one of your next steps in preparing for this was writing a letter. Do you feel comfortable listening to that letter, or would you be comfortable reading that letter aloud, or is that something we should skip, you think?
I know that letter.
Yeah.
It's to my recollection, Mom, I love you, but you're not always right. Dad, I love you, but stop bringing the office home. This isn't work. My little brother wanted to be a DJ. He was going to be the best DJ on the West Coast. I said, you'll be a household name. My sister wanted to make films. I said, you got this, or something like that. I said to my best friend, Jake Lewis, at the time, you'll find another best friend, which is, in my opinion, is the worst part of the note because it's so untrue. And I said to my girlfriend / ex-girlfriend, because it was debatable depending on who you asked, I said, it's not you, it's me. And I joke now today, and I say that my wife would say it's always me. But I wrote that note, and I think that worst part really was the part that I wrote to Jake. You'll find another best friend, as if, that's how, because he won't talk about it in the way that I would, but it destroyed him. He almost lost his best friend because his best friend didn't call him. And I'll never forget being in the hospital when he called me and said, Kevin, why did you call me? I would have been there. And that changed our relationship. We're not best friends anymore.
The note, which is in your book, was also, for me, surprisingly direct and kind of textbook. It goes, Mom, here's what you need to know. Dad, here's what you need to know. Here are the people in my life here's my last pieces of words, and then gone. It wasn't drawn out. It wasn't long. It wasn't this longing. It was just clinical. Why do you think that was the style, when clearly you're a creative, poetic person?
I remember writing like 8-10 notes.
Oh, yeah, right.
And then throwing them away. But my family tells me that there were no pieces of garbage. There were no notes in the garbage, inside or outside the house, in any garbage. But I remember writing 8 or 9 or 10 notes, crumpling them up, throwing them in the garbage can. We have no evidence of this. The idea is that I hallucinated it. That I thought I wrote all these notes when I really only wrote one. I don't know why it was so clinical. I just... in my mind, I remember writing a lot longer messages and notes and how much I loved them and how sorry I was. But then all that came out was, yep, gotta go.
Wow.
Only 20% of civilians who die by suicide actually leave notes.
Everyone else doesn't.
Nobody else did.
Do you know, and we'll talk about this too, or let's just talk about it now. You also had a lot of precursors, giving away your prized comic book collections. You're rocking the Superman or Spider-Man shoes today. Giving away your CD collection worth $400, all these things, which would be precursors to
Telltale
someone.
signs.
Do people do that?
People give away their prized possessions because they want them to be with someone who can take care of them. And that's a very common situation when someone is drastically suicidal and ready to die and make a plan. They give everything positive about their life away that they love because it'll be in someone's safe hands. I remember I tried to give away my trophies and my friends were like, dude, we don't want these. We didn't earn them. And I gave away my comic book collection to my little brother and left them in his house. And he didn't want them, but he creased his comic books. So that was clearly illogical, And if people had noticed that I was doing that, and if they knew the signs, they would have known to say something. If they had noticed that I was rapidly talking all the time and then having times of no talking at all, they would have noticed the signs. If they had noticed that I was sleeping way too much and then way too little, they would notice those signs. All of those things were happening at the same time. Many, many signs for me. Today we live in a society where all these parents are telling me they saw no signs. But the deeper you look, the harder you delve into a person's life And when you do a psychological autopsy, when you do a psychological autopsy of a person's past who's died by suicide, you can often find where the signs were in hindsight.
But only if you would even know what to look for. Only if you have the education.
What to look for.
That's why this is so powerful. Because hopefully there's a mom and dad watching who goes, wait a minute.
Yeah. If your son or daughter is more irritable than they've ever been, constantly for weeks on end, you need to do something about it immediately. If they're not sleeping when they've slept regularly, or sleeping too much when they don't sleep at all, or they're eating too much or eating too little, it's all part of the brain.
You said something that was I'm just going to read it to you. I like reading your book, apparently. On the very next page, on page 53, you say, by then, talking about your attempt, you said, by then I was swept up by another common emotion of those who become suicidal and have almost reached the point of an attempt. A form of manic elation emerged, and I was finally ridding myself of this monstrous epic pain. I was going to be free. No more night terrors, no more hallucinations of the Grim Reaper coming to my room with his staff and blade to take me away. No more twisting stomach cramps from the stress of this brain disease. Freedom was in sight. I'm going to stop it right there. That was such a realization for me, to think you're in that much pain and then you have this elation at the thought of it ending, no matter how you had to do it. Take me back there and explain that to me.
Let me ask you a question. When you find yourself in excruciating physical pain, what's the one thing you want that pain to do?
Go away.
Brain pain is 300,000 times worse than physical pain. So when you're in it, all you want it to do is stop. And it won't stop. And it can't stop. So you have to stop it. Any means necessary.
Yeah.
That's what I used to believe. Today, I live with chronic thoughts of suicide. They plague me. They're putting it in the DSM-6. Diagnostic tool for mental health is going to have chronic suicidality as its own disease. It's plaguing our nation and our globe. If we can recognize through self-awareness in suicidal crisis, through training, that our thoughts do not have to lead to our actions, we can always stay here. And that's how I stay. Every time I think of suicide, I turn to my wife and I say, Margaret, honey, please help me stay. Every time I think of suicide, I call my father. I say, Dad, please help me stay. Every single time, without fail, that I think of suicide, I say 4 simple but effective words. I need help now. And whoever is in front of me, if they don't help me, I'll turn to the next person and the next person and the next person until somebody gets my back enough for me to stay.
Yeah.
Because I cannot allow this disease to take me. It's right. I'm not here to die by my hands. That much I know. And if I know that, I can always stay, and I never have to allow my suicidal thoughts to become my actions ever again. I never have to attempt again.
Well, and you say there was only one direct question that could stop you when you had made the decision to go to the bridge. And that question was, are you thinking of harming yourself? And this is really for the parents out there. That question could have, you say it would have, stopped it in that moment.
Yeah, no, that question, are you thinking of harming yourself? More importantly, now that I understand it more and I understand the science behind it, asking the question, are you suicidal and have you made plans to take your life? Those questions are more important because statistically speaking, people have recounted that when they're asked that question in that much pain, they're truthful. Wow. They tell the truth.
Yeah.
Because someone has just given them permission to speak on their pain that they believed they had to be silent by. In my speeches every day, I say, if you're going to learn one thing from me and one thing alone today, may I ask that it be this. no matter if you are the toughest person in every room, never again, when you walk out of those doors and go about the rest of your natural life, never again silence your pain. Your pain is valid. It is worthy of my time and others. It is important. And you matter. Your pain matters because you do. And I leave people with that because I want them to know I don't care if they are the toughest person in every room. Everybody goes through pain. And everybody needs to speak on it. And a pain shared is a pain halved. If we can share our pain, we can defeat our pain.
If we share our pain, we can defeat our pain.
And we can survive the pain.
Yes, and you mentioned in a previous video, when you share your story, others share theirs.
Every time.
And it's true. And during our break, I brought the producer over and I shared a message that I received on Instagram saying, hey, I saw your videos on MedCircle.com and I didn't realize I was suffering from this, but now I've admitted it to myself and I'm getting treatment. And I just showed it to her because, that's essentially why you do what you do.
Yeah.
We're doing what we're doing. Let's continue on, though, about those moments. That next morning, you wake up super early. You go tell your dad bye at like 5 or 6 in the morning, and he goes, go back to sleep. I'll wake up later. And then he drives you, and you make your way to the bridge. Tell me about those memorable moments on that traveling to the bridge.
Yeah. I was pacing my room. Hadn't slept 14 hours, but 2 days, 14 days, but 2 hours, which is impossible, but that's what happened. And not sleeping causes psychosis. And I was feeling like bugs were crawling up and down my skin over my entire body. And I was scratching those bugs that didn't exist. And I had sprayed my bed sheets with like a bug killer that then I inhaled and was making me more psychotic. Because I got into those sheets. And then at 6 in the morning, I went to my dad's room and he was wearing his breathing apparatus, CPAP machine. And I startled him awake and he said, Kevin, what's wrong? And I said, nothing, Dad. I just wanted to tell you that I love you because I thought it was for the very last time. And he said, well, Kev, I love you too, but it's 6 in the morning and I don't got to be working until 9. Go back to bed.
Yeah.
And I went to the side of his bed and I rocked myself back and forth in tears, begging myself to tell him, he's the one man in the world that loves me the most. And I couldn't tell him because the voice in my head said, be quiet, Kevin, you have to die. It's inevitable.
Would now your dad recognize that as a sign?
100%.
Now he would.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
My dad asks me when he needs to, am I suicidal? So does my wife. So do people that love me. All the people that love me.
Yeah.
And I decided after all of this happened, because I asked my father during the filming of Suicide, The Ripple Effect, and we didn't put his interview in the video, but we had me talk about it later. In the interview, I said, Dad, do you still fear my death by suicide? And he looked at me and he goes, Kevin, every time the phone rings, he didn't say when I call him, when the phone goes off in his pocket, every time since September 25th, 2000, his first and every thought is Kevin alive. And he can't shake that just like I can't shake my abandonment issues, Yeah. And my actions did that and I take responsibility for my actions. So every time somebody who loves me asks me if I'm okay, I tell them the truth. Frankly, every time somebody I don't know asks me if I'm okay, I tell them the truth. Because if you're going to ask me if I'm okay, you best be ready to hear the real answer. And I think we should live in a society that believes that. We have too many people that look at you and here you got your work day going, you're supposed to go to the office, you walk by your colleague, hey, how you doing, John?
How you doing?
How you doing, Kyle? And all they want to hear is I'm fine, I'm good, and I'm okay. And that's all you want to say because you don't think they want to listen to you. And it's true. It goes both ways. If we just took the time when we asked that direct question, hey, how are you? To hear the real answer, we'd all be better off.
Yes. I actually don't like it when people ask me how I am.
I hate it.
Because I go, you're not really asking
You
me.
don't care. You're watching your clock and you got to move to the next deal.
That's right.
You don't care about how I feel, what I've been through, or what happened last night that broke me. So let's start caring about the people we love and the people that are next to us like they really matter.
I love all that. You were on the bus hoping somebody would notice you. Somebody would ask you that question. Yeah. Are you okay? Are you planning on harming yourself?
Yeah.
And when I'm reading that, and I know when a lot of people else did, you even say on page 3, I didn't jump because I wanted to die.
I jumped because I believed I had to. I believed it was my only option, the only course to take, that I'd die by these two hands. from pain, I was wrong. I was wrong. I wish I knew back then what I know now. Your thoughts don't have to become your actions.
That final moment, you get to the bridge and you're pacing, and that woman comes and asks you to take her picture, but you think she's coming to ask how you are, to save you. Was that a tipping point for you?
Oh yeah, and listen, I don't. There's no blame game to be played here. I actually believe now that woman who stopped me in an Eastern European accent, asked me to take her picture. I believe she was trying to reach me. I believe she was the only person on the bridge who actually did see my pain. I believe she was trying to connect with me, with her eyes, with her body language, with her smile. And when she asked me to take her picture, she was trying to take me out of my pain. But I couldn't see it at the time. I see it now in hindsight. I didn't see it back then. All I thought as she left was, absolutely nobody cares. Then the voice in my head said, jump now, and I did.
Wow. An audible voice said jump now.
Audible voice. I know his voice like I know the back of my hand. He's with me every day of my life. Sometimes he's loud. Sometimes he's quiet. Sometimes I can't hear him, but he's there. I know he's there, around the corner trying to kill me, but he never will. And the millisecond my hands left that rail, all I wanted to do was reach back. Instant regret for my actions and the absolute recognition I just made the greatest mistake of my life, and it was too late. For over 2,000 people at the Golden Gate Bridge, it's been too late. Falling 220 feet, 25 stories at 75 miles an hour in 4 seconds. It's been too late for 99% of the people who have gone off that rail. 1.8% really survived that fall. Today it's 39 people. One of them just survived a couple of days ago, and I'm going to go visit her. And I'm going to go visit the last 2 people that survived the fall in the last 6 weeks. I'm going to visit 3 people who survived the fall in the last 6 weeks, and we're going to try to help them stay here for the rest of their lives. Because I know I made a mistake, and I don't know where they stand or sit because they probably can't walk. And I'm going to help them to the best of my ability because they matter. And my life's goal from this point, and really every day, and it has been for 18 years, is to reach the core level of people's pain, pull them from that pain, and say, I got you. You're not doing this alone. We're all in this together. And I'm here for you. I'm here for every audience I've ever talked to. Every person in that audience can reach me easily on social media. I've got their back. And it's the weight of the world on my shoulders, in a sense. And I'm not bragging. I'm saying, like, I hear a lot of people's pain every day. When you tell your story, they tell you theirs. And it is sometimes mind-numbing and back-breaking. And my back's been broken, so I know that. But I will listen, and I will hear them, and I will hear every message. And I don't leave a speech unless I physically have to get on a plane until the last person leaves. And trust me, they stay, and they tell me their story. And it is the most fulfilling, blessed gift I've ever been given, next to my wife, Margaret Hines. To hear people's pain and let them unburden themselves. And then they reach out to you on social media later and they say, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay for the rest of my life.
Wonderful. A beautiful commitment.
If you're looking for expert guidance and community support on your mental health journey, consider a MedCircle membership. Explore your membership options using the link below this video or visit medcircle.com.
The day before you went to the Golden Gate Bridge, we know you had made a lot of decisions to prepare for that. And after another citizen asked you to take her picture and walked away, you say the demon in your head said, all right, now's the time to jump, do it.
Yeah.
What was your next memory?
Feeling like shards of glass were piercing my skin as I fell.
In the air.
Because the fog just turns to icicles. And you're falling so fast that it's like stabbing you all over your body where your skin is exposed. So my face felt like it was being stabbed by 1,000 needles. My hands and, everything else was covered. And then I hit the water. And the impact immediately just shattered and exploded my T12, L1, L2 lower vertebrae into shards, and they popped and splintered inside me. It was the most excruciating pain I've ever experienced.
Mm.
And then I went down 70 feet, because when you hit that water from that height at that speed, it's like hitting a solid brick wall. You stop for less than a second. You stop like you're hitting a brick wall. And a vacuum sucks you under 70 feet. And then I opened my eyes, and I was alive, and the website said that you die on impact. And I was drowning, and I didn't want to drown. Why'd I jump into a giant body of water if I didn't want to drown? And I swam 70 feet, only using my arms in one breath, praying, God, please save me. I don't want to die. I made a mistake. In my head, popped out of the water, prayed it out loud. After I took a breath, I tried to scream for help, but all that came out was help, help.
Oh.
I couldn't speak. I couldn't yell. And I looked around, and my neck hurt, and my back was broken in 3 places. My right ankle was wrenched, or I think I did something to my right ankle. I'm not sure the exact injury. And I was in so much physical pain, but all I wanted to do was live. And I couldn't stay afloat. I kept going down. Swallowing salt water, coming up, spitting it out, going down. Every time I went down further. And then I went down so far, I didn't think I'd make it back up. I was so tired, having a violent asthma attack. I've had exercise-induced asthma since kindergarten. I used to wrestle with it and then have to pause the sessions and have me take my breather in the middle of it. And I resurfaced. And I thought, this is it. If I go down one more time, I'm gone. I'm dead. And no one's going to ever know I didn't want to die. No one's ever going to know I knew I made a mistake. And that's when this creature started to circle beneath me. Faster and faster and faster and faster. And no longer was I doing this to stay afloat. I'm lying on my back, being kept buoyant by this thing, thinking to myself, I didn't die off the Golden Gate Bridge and a shark is going to eat me.
Yeah.
This is bullshit.
Right. The website said nothing about sharks.
A shark is he's gonna bite off my leg at any moment, and I'm gonna drown in my own blood. Not cool. But it didn't bite me. It just circled faster and faster. And it did not leave from beneath me until I heard, under the water, the Coast Guard boat murmur behind me. They didn't see the creature, but it took off. These guys fished me out of a flatboard, put me on a neck brace, and strapped me in from head to toe, and they started asking a bunch of questions. But I would not learn until a year later on a show called Primetime Live with John Quinones on ABC, who does that show, What Would You Do? I would learn when he said, Kevin, what happened? I told him I thought there was a shark beneath me, which is what I still believed. And people wrote into the show from all over the world. And one man's letter stuck out above all the rest. His name was Morgan McWard. He was from Las Vegas, Nevada. And on that day that I jumped, he was on the bridge with his mom. And he wrote, Kevin, something to this effect. Kevin, I'm so very glad you're alive. I was standing less than 2 feet away from you when you jumped. Until this day, no one would tell me whether you lived or died. By the way, Kevin, it's haunted me until now. There was no shark, like you mentioned on the show, but there was a sea lion. And the people above, looking down, believed to be keeping your body afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind you. I'm not lucky I'm alive. I'm blessed I get to exist. And if I get to exist, I got to try to help people do the same for the rest of my life.
And I got to go back to the sea lion.
Yeah.
You thought it was a shark?
Yeah. I punched it.
I punched
it twice.
For years you thought it was a shark?
Well, for a year, yeah.
For a
Until
year.
the guy wrote to me. He sent me a picture.
Yeah.
Of the sea lion in the water, circling beneath me. It's a very morbid picture. It's my lifeless body on the water.
Yeah.
Bloated and lying atop it, just looking dead. I look like I'm dead.
Yeah.
The problem with that picture is that I sent him, because the emails back in the day, before emails were so popular,
yeah.
ABC printed those emails and mailed them to me. So when I sent the request for the picture, I left ABC News with my dad's email. He was not prepared or willing to see that. And in his old PC, it popped out on his whole screen. And he fell out of his chair, gripping his chest like he was having a heart attack. He's always wanted to delete that picture. He lived it. He didn't need to see it, you know?
Well, and that is obviously sea lions played an important role in your life and still do today.
Yeah.
It's on your shirt.
It's my mascot.
You came in, I said, oh, you got the sea lion shirt.
Yeah.
I love it because my favorite animals are sea lions. I used to work with them all over the country. But your sea lion is named Herbert.
Herbert.
So we got, I have maybe I missed that part in the book, but why Herbert?
It was either Mortimer or Herbert, and I picked Herbert.
But why was it only those two options?
Because they're the goofiest names that nobody ever names their kids anymore. And I thought, this guy is special, or girl, whatever. Yeah. Herbert the girl sea lion, who knows? Yeah. It's Herbert because that's just how I feel.
I was just so expecting it to like stand for something or be like that. And you're telling me.
It's hope.
Yeah, something like that. You go, I don't know, it's two weird names.
No, Herbert, just because it tickled my funny bone. And this creature was the first thing that saved my life.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things saved my life, you know. The doctor in the hospital who wasn't supposed to be there that day, who happened to be one of the best, foremost back surgeons on the West Coast, who did my surgery with the scalpel in my belly when in the first 10 minutes of the surgery I had a violent asthma attack. He could have cut me up and I could have died. He saved my life twice. You know, the woman who drove by in a red car who saw me go over and called her friend in the Coast Guard saved my life. The Coast Guard saved my life. The sea lion saved my life. I've been saved more times than I can count on my hands and toes.
Do you believe in miracles?
I do.
Did you before this?
100%. I'm a faith-filled man. I have no qualms of saying I believe in God, and I always have. Ever since I can remember, I've had faith. The only time I lost my faith was when I was on that bridge before I jumped off. But I found him on the way down.
Yeah. You call that incident in your book an awakening. What do you mean by that?
I realized, however I was saved, that I'm intended to be here. And I'll never shake that. That's a good thing that I hold right to my chest. I'm intended to be here until my natural end. And I believe every person that has ever attempted suicide was too. They just didn't know it. Think of all the babies that never make it into the world, all the miscarriages. 30% of every first pregnancy ends in miscarriage. My wife and I know that pain. Our little Jack Ryan will never be in my arms, but I'll think about him every day like he's been here the entire time. He wasn't intended to be here. We all are. For the simple fact that I'm looking at you in your eyes. I can hear your voice when you speak, and I can see your smile. We're not supposed to die by our hands. Period.
You have met others who have survived the jump off the Golden Gate. And you say in your book in chapter 5, of the survivors, 19 of them have come forward and expressed words to this effect. The second my hands and feet left the rail, I realized I had made a mistake. I realized how much I needed to live. I didn't want to die.
All over the world, in means of all kinds of suicide, people who have survived have recounted instant regret from their actions. Because the thought is separate from the action.
Yes. Yeah.
The belief that you have to die, not the want to die. There's a difference between a choice and something you're compelled to do by outside forces or seemingly outside forces or inside forces. And these people are compelled to do something they really don't want to. There are plenty of people who talk about wanting to die about suicide. They want to. They need to. They feel like it. The chronically suicidal talk about wanting to die all the time. There's a difference. There's different levels of suicidal people. Depression is not the main culprit of suicide. Despair and pain are. They go hand in hand. And when they're too great, you fold. And when you're in so much pain that you can't breathe, you believe you have to go. You believe it's the only way to stop the pain. If we can teach people how to be resilient in the face of pain, how to cope with the pain, and how to survive the pain, a lot more of us could stay here, inside the pain.
Throughout your book, you have different components of hope. And when you got into the psychiatric hospital, the psychiatric ward, you learned a routine, and you said on page 75, the routine I had learned in the ward, my routine of exercise, medication, talk therapy, and social interaction worked. It was the first time in my book, and reading your story, I go, oh, thank goodness, like we found to keep doing that, you know? But my second thought was, that sounds pretty simple.
Common sense tools to better your brain health.
I mean,
I call it the art of wellness.
yes.
I was in that third psych ward stay, third involuntary psych unit,
Yes.
3 and 2 years, all right? Forced in against my will. I never went back to a psych ward.
And this is after the bridge.
After the bridge,
I want people to know that.
So, third involuntary psych ward stay. Every time I went back to a psych ward after that, I walked in there and I said, I need help now or I'm not going to be here. I became self-aware in that third psych ward stay. I realized that I had issues that I needed to address. I needed to find the root of the problem or the problems. I needed to be honest in therapy.
Yeah.
Number one, I was lying in therapy every day. I'm fine, following the treatment plan, taking the pills. Yeah, I was taking them one day and not the next, 7 days, not for 7 days, or while binge drinking until blackout on the weekends on psychotropic meds, which could have killed me. So I started to take the pills every day with 100% accuracy at the same time every day without fail. I stopped taking the pills and then throwing them away when they gave them to me. Okay, or flushing them down the toilet or putting them in the shower. I started to eat healthy foods. I was massively overweight and near diabetic. I lost the weight in the hospital because the nutritionist looked at me and was like, look, we looked at your food log. You got to stop eating 4 unhealthy meals per 1 meal a day. And I was like, you got healthier foods? They said, yes, we have some healthier options. I started eating non-inflammatory foods. I started exercising every day without fail, multiple times a day, to reduce my weight and to get back in shape and to get away from prediabetes. I lost the weight with those two tactics. I went to the nurse's station. I said, I'm an insomniac, help me. They said, here, we got more pills. I said, no, you got me on all these pills. I'm finally taking them accurately. Give me something I can do that's natural. And they said, okay, hold on. So one nurse came back, and I think her name was Jane. She brought me a CD player from Walgreens. All right, $2.99 CD player, 3 CDs, whale, ocean, rainforest noises, proven to alter brain waves and brain patterns through music therapy to help sleep function. I thought it was nonsense. I was sleeping in 3 weeks.
Do you still do that?
Yeah. Pandora, Sleep Channel.
Hey Pandora, look at you getting a mention.
So I eat healthily most days, most meals. Not every meal.
Yeah.
Because I'm
All right, so what's your cheat food?
Oh God, donuts, Cheez-Its, which I'm
Cheez-Its?
totally allergic to. But I can't not have a bag of Cheez-Its a month. Just one
Okay.
bag a month.
Now, do you do it all in one sitting?
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you.
You have to be honest.
No, I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
I have my cheat days like once or twice a month where I eat whatever I want, and I feel it.
Yeah.
And it affects me terribly, and even affects my skin because I have this new skin disease. So I deal with that. But I'm not going to give up the things that taste that good for the rest of my life. I'm just going to have them once a month. That's not bad. And so I eat non-inflammatory foods. The book Genius Foods by Max Lukarev, the leader in the field, friend of mine. He wrote this book, Genius Foods, about non-inflammatory foods, because inflammatory foods, everything that has preservatives in it, everything that comes from paper boxes or plastic wrappings, is filled with preservatives. And those foods are inflammatory foods, and they literally affect your brain because your brain is connected to your gut. Your brain, the membranes in your gut directly link and physically and physiologically connect to your brain. If you're feeding your gut poor foods, you're damaging your brain. And the damage of your brain caused by foods that we eat all over the world that we're fed at schools.
Yeah.
Military bases have Taco Bell, McDonald's, and Starbucks, and they're all eating foods that are poisoning them. All of those foods that we get from fast food chains or that we get in boxes and plastic wrappings that are not, there are some of them that are really healthy foods and on purpose, but most of them are really bad for you. And sugar is a class 3 poison. The first is arsenic, 1st degree poison. It'll kill you. The second is a spider bite or a snake bite. It'll kill you without an antidote. The third is things like sugar and caffeine that's overindulged in all around the world that people are addicted to, and it's killing their brain cells. And it's causing them to have depression, anxiety, stress, panic attacks, hallucinations. Mental illness is precipitated often by the food we're eating. If we eliminated those foods from our diet 90% of the time like I do, you'll live more mentally free. When I eliminated dairy, caffeine, and refined sugars, except from fruit, from 90% of my diet, I was 80% less symptomatic by my estimations.
Incredible.
Meaning that I had paranoia every day for months, most of my life, from the time I jumped to maybe 50 weeks ago when I had my skin disease come over me. And the skin disease was in great part caused not just by the medication that I was taking that was poisoning my organs, which it did, but it was a lot caused by the foods I was eating. I eliminated those foods. I added a certain cream from my new good friends, Eczema Honey Co. that treats psoriasis and these diseases. And I eliminated those foods and my paranoia went away. My severe bouts of depression went away. My anxiety lessened. My panic attacks went from being every day, often during the day, to a few times a week or twice a week or every couple of days, right? So all of my severe symptoms that I've been living with for so long, when I eliminated these things from my diet 90% of the time, they dissipated.
Incredible.
I'm more mentally stable than I've ever been in my life. I realize I've been crying a lot today, but that's just because I can tell you, I have closure from this story, but these types of questions that you're asking bring up pieces of memories of painful moments that affect my mood, and that's okay. Because I know at the end of this interview, I'm gonna go do my breathing, I'm gonna go do this speech, and I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna call my wife, and she's gonna tell me how much she loves me, and I'm gonna be fine.
Great. If any time you ever need a break, you just say it.
No, I know.
And we break.
No, I know.
And this is also positively affecting so many other people. In the book, you said you had 7 psychiatric hospitalizations within 10 years.
Yeah.
Have you had any more since the book was published?
So 7 and 11 years from 2000 to 2011. 2000 to 2004, 3 psych ward stays, involuntary. 2009, so I had a 5-year gap of wellness.
Right.
5 years of working tirelessly for my brain health. And then in 2009, the medication I've been taking stopped working. It's what they call pooped out. It's actually a technical term. And in those, I had those 5 years of wellness. And then in 2009, I broke down again. And I went back into a psych ward. And I would see 4 psych ward stays in the next 2009, 2011, 2 basically each year. I would have my last psych ward stay that I've ever had in 2011, where I had 60 days of suicidal depression, 60 days of chronic suicidal thoughts and planning suicide, which is why they had to stick me in a box for 60 days. And, I was in that psych ward, and that's where I wrote the last chapter of my book. In a psych ward, I dictated it to a nurse, and she penned it for me because I couldn't write. My hands would shake so terribly, I couldn't write down words on a page. And I wrote that last chapter of the book in there, and I got out. And when I got out, I went straight into ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, because they said there's nothing else that's going to change you. They said your suicidal depression is so drastic. This is what we need to do. There's nothing. We don't have any other options because we've exhausted all the options. I said, I want to do electroconvulsive therapy. You're going to lobotomize me. They said, no, that's not how it works anymore. It's very practical, and it helps people who with chronic suicidality break it. I said, okay, I'm willing to try anything. And 26 treatments later of unilateral and bilateral ECT, seizures caused electronically through the brain. And something clicked, and within 6 treatments, I didn't want to die anymore. And within 26 treatments, I got to a place where no matter the suicidal crisis I felt I was in, today, recently, every month, I can always stay here. And I believe that had a lot to do with the ECT resetting my brain. I'm not promoting ECT, I don't do that, but I'm telling you, like, there was something in that changed everything. And here I am, not a suicidal crisis that led to a psych ward stay in almost 8 years. And that's a huge gift, because when I had my skin disease issue caused by the medications that are supposed to mitigate my mental health, and they caused second-degree burns from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head and bloody blisters throughout. And I thought I was going to be in chronic excruciating pain for the rest of my life, because that's what people told me. They said, you're going to live with this nerve pain and this this feeling like needles are poking out of your skin from your bones for the rest of your life, 24 hours a day. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. And then I found the right things to fix that, a mixture of, holistic creams and the food elimination issue. And I got back to good skin. If you saw me 50 weeks ago, you could have seen through my skin to my veins, and you would have seen the blue blood inside them. It was disgusting.
Wow.
And bloody blisters all over my entire body. And that was in the most excruciating pain I've ever experienced. It was for 30 weeks nonstop, 24 hours a day. And I realized something, Kyle. I realized that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And I've never suffered a day in my life. Never suffered a day in my life. I've lived, I've experienced pain, and I've survived. And I believe that I can teach other people how to do the very same every day of the week, no matter who they are or what they've been through.
I've learned so much after reading your book, talking with you. Everybody here has, and I know the people watching have as well. You have this great checklist of the 10, I'm just going to read it because it's the 10 steps, complete these 10 steps daily to begin learning the art of living mentally well. And we could do a whole series just on these, but let's go each of them. Just give a couple sentences of how they've benefited you. The first one is therapy.
Therapy, all right? It took me 8 to 10 years of denial to finally be honest in therapy.
So the big takeaway from therapy, be honest in therapy.
Be honest in therapy. It will do you wonders. And today I call it The Art of Wellness, and we're coming out with a book with the whole 10 steps, and we're coming out with 5 other versions of other people's 10 steps to their arts of wellness.
All right.
And they're called different things, but we're gonna be able to combine all of these steps, and you're gonna be able to go on an app and choose whose steps you wanna follow. You can mix and match plans to build your own personal tool to better your brain health every day.
I need that.
Yeah.
I need this. I already started implementing these.
Nice.
Number 2 is medication.
Yeah. That's the only one that's not a common sense tool because it doesn't work for everybody.
True.
But it worked for me, and it's worked for me for 20 years, minus the time it tried to poison me. But we worked around that. We found a way to get back on medication that helped save my life. So I take medication with 100% accuracy every day without fail at the same time every day, no matter the time zone. Because if I put it on a calendar and I make it routine, it affects me more accurately and more appropriately to better my brain health every day than if I'm just sporadically taking it one day and not the next, 7 days and not for 7 days, or while binge drinking or something else. So I take it the right way, and it has the best effect.
And even when you said you were taking it, you sometimes weren't back in the day.
Right.
And so parents listening to this, make sure your kid is actually taking it.
Yeah.
Number 3, exercise. I mean, every doctor I talk to, they go, yeah, and all these steps are good, but eat well and exercise too. It's so obvious, but we don't do it.
There's something to it. Look, I look at it like this. If we're physically capable of exercise and we're not exercising, we're making a huge mistake in our life's journey because 23 minutes of rigorous exercise with very little breaks equals 12 hours of better mood, better brain health. Guess what? If you do that twice a day,
24 hours.
24 hours of better mood.
Yeah.
I exercise, and when I was sick and in the physical pain for so long with the skin disease, I exercised 16 times a day in 13-minute increments. That's 3 hours of exercise a day, but 13-minute increments are realistic, totally achievable during the part of your day when you're not doing something.
Yeah.
I'm busy most days, most of the time of the day, but I take those 13 minutes and I get it anywhere I can, any way I can. I'm infamous for my airport workouts.
Yes.
People stare at me and take pictures, but that's their problem.
That is their problem. I love that. Sleep.
The most important by far.
This is your most important.
Most important by far. It's all of our most importance.
Okay.
If we are not getting adequate sleep, we are physically and emotionally and mentally damaging our brains. We're losing brain cells. We're damaging our sleep function. Goes right hand in hand with breathing techniques. 88% of Americans don't breathe properly.
How am I supposed to be breathing?
Because when you're upset and aggressive and pissed off, you breathe shallow, short breaths that deplete oxygen from your brain and affect brain function. If you focus 30 times a day, 3 sets a day of breathing in the nose for 4 seconds, out for 8, pursed lips like a whistle but no sound, and you do that every day for 6 months, you lower your blood pressure, heart rate, your blood sugar gets lowered, your panic can be quelled, your anxiety can be quelled, an adrenaline rush can be crushed back to calm. If you have low blood pressure, it's not for you. It's dangerous.
No excuses.
No
we
excuses.
can all do. I just did it.
We can all do it. 4 or 8 every day, 30 times a day, 3 times. It'll help change your life.
Love it. You talked about food in the previous video, but that's obviously on your list.
Yeah.
Healthy diets better, low inflammation foods. Number 6, it's probably my favorite one, which is education. This is this is our whole purpose at MedCircle. Education. But what does it mean when it comes to our mental health education?
My Uncle Kevin, on my dad's side, every day he'd come to every psych ward without fail until he died of pancreatic cancer. He missed the last psych ward stay. Every other psych ward stay, he was there without fail. Nobody else was. Uncle Kevin would bring me 3 things: cup of soup, conversation, and comic books. And then he would bring me a separate thing every other session, a book on bipolar disorder. How to fight it, defeat it, beat it, one day at a time. How to use every tool in the handbook to better brain health. He would bring me every book on the subject, every magazine, every article, and I devoured it.
Number 7, probably a little tough for me, refrain from using alcohol.
Refrain from using alcohol. The next step is refrain from using drugs.
Yeah.
My birth parents died of alcohol and drugs, so I will never touch it. I binge drank until blackout at least 5 times that I can remember while on psychotropic medication, which could have really damaged me.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that it didn't do more damage than it had. And if you find a way through substance use to find recovery from it, live in it, and stay in it, my recommendation is refrain from all drugs and alcohol, because it can't tempt you to go down that path again. And if I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not the hardest thing you're ever going to do when you are addicted, but you can get to a better place. You don't have to end up like my birth parents did.
That's right. And it goes right into number 9. Number 8 was refrain from using recreational drugs. Number 9 is coping.
Yeah.
So many people don't even know they use food, television, relationships, drugs, alcohol to cope. Explain, what's your big takeaway from coping?
You can choose negative coping mechanisms that damage your brain or positive coping mechanisms that heal it. It's your choice. It's a hard choice to make. Like, that's why I don't eat Cheez-Its every day, because I used to, and I was near diabetic, right? Here I am in the best shape of my life at 36 years old, in the shape I was in when I was a high school wrestler, because I worked tirelessly for my brain, mind, behavioral, spiritual, and mental health every day. And I fight the suicidal thoughts every day, and I win every day. I win every day because of all these 10 steps that I do without fail each day. And I don't gripe about them. I don't cry about them. I get it done for my health, and I preach about it because I want other people to do the same.
Yeah, I get it. The last one was the one that I go, what? I didn't think this would be on the list. The binder.
The binder.
Give me the 30-second. What's the binder?
The binder was a binder. What's a binder? The kids at home are like, what is a binder, sir? I only know binders in my phone.
Yeah.
Or folders in my phone.
What app is that?
What app is that? There's probably an app for that. But it was a physical binder that I made for certain family members to opt in to my brain health. I got the release form signed by my doctors, all of them, every kind of doctor you can imagine, so that my family could be a part of my wellness, so that my particular friends could be a part of my journey to hope and healing and recovery, and so that when I was unwell and I wasn't self-aware, they could say, hey, that symptom's in the binder, we better get Kevin on track. And so every sign, symptom, trigger, every time the bad relationships I had, the friends that were negative in my life, their names were in the binder. Every doctor's name, information, phone number, email, and address was in the binder. And my doctors all had, I coordinated them all together because you can't expect them to do it. No. There's no healthcare coverage in the world that has them talking to each other. So you got to go to your dentist, your psychiatrist, your primary, your psychologist, your psychopharmacologist, or whoever you're working with. Your Reiki coach, I don't care, whoever you believe in is helping you mentally, go to them and say, if I'm in a bad place mentally, here's who you call. And then you create personal protectors so that you don't have to rely just on yourself, especially when you're mentally unwell and you can't.
Yes.
And you can't even function.
I love that.
Let alone ask for help.
Yeah.
So when they see me falling, they grab me, my personal protectors. They say, we got you. Let's go to the hospital. Let's go to the doctor. Let's get a checkup. Let's go to therapy. Let's be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest. I love that. All right, just some questions. Did you ever meet The Rock? He's like a huge fan of The Rock. So you haven't met him yet?
20 years.
How
20
has this
years
not
of trying to
happened?
reach that guy. And I'm sorry, but I love what he does for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. But
could we
listen,
get a
Rock,
Kevin
Rock,
a wish?
Rock, I'm not terminally ill, and I get it. And that's it's a wonderful thing you're doing for so many kids. But I've been trying to reach you for 20 years, man.
Yeah.
And you saved my life. You know, when I was first suicidal and self-harming, I read that book. The Rock says, a New York Times bestseller, right? Thank you very much. He did a great job on that one. And in the book, he was the first celebrity I ever read about that talked openly about their bouts with depression and how they would overcome it.
Yeah.
And he had a similar situation. He broke his back in football. I didn't break my back in football, but I broke my back. And he recovered. He had a rough life as a kid in really severe poverty for some time. Parents evicted regularly, things like that. And he overcame all of that.
Yeah.
With faith and the human condition that he had the will to find a way to hope and well-being and to a bright future.
Oh.
And that inspired the hell out of me because I would look at this man who they called the people's champ, who was this rock. He was built, he was strong, he was tough, and nothing ever crushed him, and he always won because he willed it to be so. Even when he lost, he won.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then he goes and he says, I'm gonna go be an actor. And CAA looked at him and they laughed him out the door. They laughed him out the door because they thought, you're a wrestler, dude, get out of here. But then William Morris Endeavor was like, oh, we see your vision and we got you. And then he became the single most bankable actor in the world ever. 2017, $13.3 billion in the box office.
Wow.
All because Will finds a way.
Yeah.
Dude's my hero. If I never get to meet him, he'll always be my hero. If I get to meet him, it'll be the
No, it's going to happen.
It'll be the best day of my life besides the day I married my wife and found that sea lion at the bridge.
It's going to happen.
Your lips to God's
I wish
ears.
right now
Your
I was
lips
like,
to
and
God's
now
ears.
The Rock is here. But that's not happening.
It's all good. It's all
today.
good.
Or is it? No, it's just really not. Okay, so you never met The Rock. That sucks.
No.
But one day you'll meet The
I
Rock.
will someday.
Do you believe in heaven? What do you think heaven looks like?
I think heaven looks like each individual who gets there wants it to.
So what does your heaven look like?
My heaven is a man cave filled with Marvel Comics regalia all over the walls. It's just one room. It's got a big plasma screen TV that's playing healthy videos of some kind. And Jesus is in the left-hand corner of the room sitting next to my great-grandmother. And they're having a chat about her strawberry rhubarb. Yeah. And then when I get there, she hands me a plate of it, and I'm home.
With ice cream?
No, that's dairy.
Only strawberry rhubarb.
Just strawberry rhubarb.
Yeah. And The Rock.
And the refined sugar in heaven is non-inflammatory.
It's totally fine there.
Non-inflammatory.
Yeah, because that's heaven.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. The beach or the lake?
Oh, the lake.
The lake.
Oh, easy.
Okay, Coke or Pepsi?
Neither.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, no refined sugars. Do you believe that we all have a soul?
I do believe we all have a soul. I know mine very well.
What is the soul?
The soul is a symbiotic connection to the heart, and the soul is where hope comes from.
Mm.
And when you find the ability to reach other people's souls, you can change lives.
Mm. Perfect. No further questions.
Yeah, buddy.
Kevin Hines, the man. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.